The post-Second World War period saw the rise of an anti-colonial Malayan nationalist movement characterized by a growing sense of a shared collective identity and a desire to contribute to a nation-building agenda. Following the independence of Singapore and the emergence of a multicultural and meritocratic society, many Indians entered public life and contributed in diverse areas such as politics, civil service, business and banking, legal and judicial, healthcare, science and technology, visual and performing arts, education, nursing, trade union, information technology, social work, religion, etc. In addition, organizations were established to cater to diverse social, cultural, linguistic and professional interests within the community. Today, the Indian community in Singapore is a living and thriving community, and although they constitute 9.2% of the total population, they continue to play an important role in contributing to Singapore's society and shaping the nation's future. This gallery showcases the post-war contributions of Indians to the making of Singapore as a modern nation. Evocative of the curatorial experience in documenting these contributions, this section is organized like a scrapbook, allowing visitors to engage with artifacts, audio and video interviews, photo albums and other ephemera from the personal collections of such pioneers. Here are 5 stories for you to experience. Born in 1925 in present-day Kerala in southern India, K.P. Bhaskar went on to become one of the most prominent practitioners and teachers of classical dance in Singapore. Interested in dance from a young age, Bhaskar began learning Kathakali as a teenager and added Manipuri, Kathak and other regional dance forms to his repertoire. As a young man, he travelled with dance troupes including the British Indian Army's troupe which performed during the Second World War. In 1952, he was invited to Australia to teach and perform. A stopover in Singapore en route proved to be a turning point for him, and Bhaskar decided to make Singapore home. He set up the Bhaskar's Academy of Dance in 1952, one of the first Indian classical dance schools to be established here. This later became the Bhaskar's Arts Academy, which was the performance wing, and the Nrityalaya Aesthetic Society, which became the teaching wing. In 1955, he was joined by his wife Santa, a prolific dancer who became the choreographer and artistic director of the school. In the 1960s, the academy performed all over Singapore in multicultural shows that were part of national rallies to promote Singaporean identity. For his contribution to the arts, K.P. Bhaskar received various prestigious awards, including the Pingat Jasa Gemilang or the Meritorious Service Medal, one of Singapore's highest civilian honours. Born in 1939, Kesavan Soon was one of Singapore's youngest sporting stars. While still a student at Victoria School, he was selected at the age of 17 to represent Singapore at the 1956 Melbourne Olympics, where he participated in the 100 and 200 meter sprint events. Famously, he was spotted while playing rugby at school in 1955 by American sprinter and 4-time Olympic gold medalist Jesse Owens, who was visiting Singapore at the time. Owens encouraged Soon to consider focusing on athletics. Soon was voted the most popular sportsman in Singapore in 1956 and is considered one of the greatest sprinters that Singapore has produced. Also a passionate rugby player, he played for the Singapore Asians rugby team in 1959 before retiring due to injuries. In 1959, Soon joined the Singapore Armed Forces, where he rose to the rank of Lieutenant Colonel before his retirement in 1991. Arriving in Malaya from Jaffna in 1918 at the age of 11, Ambiya Vagar is a story of persistence and determination. Owing to a difficult childhood, Velavathar Ambiya Vagar had difficulty in school, even failing his junior Cambridge exam. Determined to do better, Ambiya Vagar managed to gain admission to Raffles Institution in Singapore and eventually a teacher training course. Graduating from the first batch of Raffles College in 1931, Ambiya Vagar took up teaching soon after. He taught at various premier schools, including Raffles Institution and Victoria School, and became the first Asian principal of Raffles Institution in 1958. In 1959, he was appointed the Deputy Director of Education in the midst of the Communist uprising, which was using Chinese schools and students as their base of operations. Ambiya Vagar was also involved with the Singapore Teachers Association, which later became the Singapore Teachers Union, and appealed successfully for better salaries and recognition for Asian teachers. He retired in 1961 as the Director of Education and Acting Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Education. Albail Singh holds the distinction of not only being one of the first batch of national servicemen in Singapore, but being the first to enlist. On 18 March 1967, when registration for the national service began, 18-year-old Albail Singh was the first in line at the Central Manpower Base in Dempsey Road. Upon completion of national service, Singh stayed with the Singapore Armed Forces, rising to the position of Commander of the 29th Singapore Infantry Brigade. He retired in 1999 after a 30-year-long career in the armed forces. His pride in the service to his country is evident. On the 50th anniversary of the foundation of the National Service, he noted, "It is a very significant moment for me. NS is a responsibility. The defense of Singapore is a reality." S. Chandra Mohan was a pioneer of the broadcast industry in Singapore. Over his career spanning 5 decades, he served in key executive positions in the industry, initiated and developed many current affairs programs, and nurtured several generations of broadcast journalists and documentary producers. Starting as a producer at the Singapore Broadcasting Corporation in 1962, he went on to serve as the Director of News and Current Affairs. He held key positions within the then Singapore Broadcasting Corporation, playing a pivotal role in the station's programs and driving award-winning shows such as Diary of a Nation, Today in Parliament, and many other significant public broadcasts. He was also instrumental in the launch of Radio Singapore International in 1994. Near the start of his career, he was the TV news producer who directed the coverage of the historic TV conference which announced that Singapore had been forced out of Malaysia. Chandra Mohan's instructions to the cameraman resulted in the now famous image of Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew's emotional moment on that historic day in 1965. Of the coverage, PM Lee later noted, "I had to stop halfway because I could not control my emotions." He decided to show part of it. From the feedback I got, he made the right decision. For his contributions to the development of television news in Singapore, he is known as the father of Singapore's broadcast journalism. Thank you for tuning in to hear about the making of our permanent exhibition and some of the stories that make up Singapore's Indian heritage. I hope you enjoyed your visit to the Centre's permanent exhibition. We hope you will visit us again.